a lot of times what I say to my clients is they're not mourning the marriage that they have. They're mourning the marriage that they thought they were going to have, what their life was supposed to be. That's
Wow.
what they're mourning, because the life they're having right now, the reason they're getting divorced is because it's not good.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Anisa Tova. And today I'm sitting down with someone who is the perfect mix of strength and compassion, Sandra Radna, who is the founding attorney of her own successful law firm, which is really incredible because she's been practicing since 1993. And her clients, from what I understand, actually call her a pit bull with a heart. So that really says it all. And she fiercely fights for her clients. She advocates, but she also cares very, very deeply. She's an author of a book called You're Getting Divorced Now What? And from what I understand, it's a straight talking guide for anyone navigating the divorce court. And of course, as we do in this podcast, we go outside of the title to find out who Sandra is. And I cannot wait to dive in. Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Hello, Denisa. Thank you for having me.
Pitbull with a heart. I mean, I can't wait to hear that. But before we get there, let's start at the beginning. So tell me, how did you get here? How did you become a lawyer and why?
Well, I started out wanting to be in the medical profession. I wanted to be a doctor, then I wanted to be a nurse, then physical therapist, optometrist, all of these different things. The consistent theme was that I always wanted to help people. And I was working at the American Diabetes Association, and didn't really love it. I was more like an administrative person. I was talking to one of my friends, and he said, "Why don't you take the LSAT and go to law school?" And that was it. I took the LSAT. I still remember the date. I took it on February 8th. I applied to law school in April and started in August. And so that was it, and I loved it. After being pre-med in college, I felt like law school was like entertainment. Everything was just so interesting and affected every part of your life. Every area of law was just a practical application, where what I did in pre-med, a lot of it was theoretical. So it was just very interesting to me. I found all the teachers interesting. I loved it. I loved law school, and I still love being a lawyer.
So tell me about going even further back. What were you into as a young girl?
What did I do? I did ballet, I did piano. I was the lead in my senior school play. I was Adelaide in Guys and Dolls. I was the captain of my kick line team. I was the captain of my sports team uh, for it's like sports day for my school. And I don't know, I was just always interested in trying to help people. As a child, my mother always had me going over to all the neighbors, bring this one some soup. They're lonely. Go sit with this one. Maybe they'd like to say hi to you. We had rose bushes in our garden. Why don't you bring flowers to the neighbor across the street? And I think that's what started me having a lot of satisfaction and joy from helping people. And divorce law is such a difficult time for people when they're going through something so emotional. What's more emotional than your children and knowing whether you're going to have enough money to live on and survive on and where you're going to live? And to help people through that is just very satisfying for me.
I'm sure it is, and it carries a huge responsibility. I mean, when it comes to dividing stuff and assets, I'm sure. I mean, and I say that, and I've said it before that it's not easy, but it's not super complicated because there's no that alone. There's no emotion involved, but because it impacts there's so many feelings attached to dividing stuff and money. It is emotional, and then of course you're dealing with the future of the children. How do you deal with someone who is really wrapped in their emotion from the very beginning? How do you carry them through that?
One of the things I always tell people is that we're deciding the same things every single time in a divorce. Who's going to stay in the house? Who's going to have primary custody of the children? The amount of support and division of the marital assets. And when we kind of put everything in its little buckets, and we chip away and we deal with one thing at a time, it makes it a lot easier for people to digest than if you're looking at the whole overwhelming situation. And that's really how I get people through it. We take care of one thing at a time. I always tell them when it's a very complicated case, we're just chipping away at issues until maybe we have one or two issues left. And I think that makes it a lot easier then it's just like when you look at the huge messy room and you say, how am I going to get this whole thing clean? And let me just start with making the bed, and then I'll do the other things. And that really works. It does help to calm my clients down. I'm very uh hands-on with them. So I'll talk to them about everything and it just helps them to be part of the process, to understand what's going on, and it kind of talks them off the ledge of the extremely emotional time in their lives where they're having to deal with what's going to happen with their children, what's going to happen with their money, and still do their full-time job, and do it well, because they have to do that. So it's just, it's a difficult thing to go through, but to be able to have somebody that's speaking with you about it and explaining the process and taking away the mystery is what really helps them through.
What about if you have what about if you have unreasonable practitioner, another attorney on the other side? How do you deal with them?
I talk right to the judge. When the other attorney is being unreasonable, I rely on the strength of the law and I take my issues to the judge, whether that's in a conference or in a motion or at a hearing. And that's usually the way to do it. If my client is being unreasonable and they're asking for something that under the law they're not going to get, I let them know that. If it's something we can negotiate, we do that. But sometimes you have an attorney that no matter how reasonable you're being, they're going to be unreasonable and there's nothing you can do. I had one situation where my client's youngest child was 2 years old. It was a 10-year marriage, and the other attorney said that the wife should be able to stay in the house for till the child was 18. Well, that was completely unreasonable. He knew it was unreasonable, but he kept making that argument, and we just took it to the judge. And of course, that's not what happened. We sold the house and they didn't do that, but it's just they held on to that position. So there's nothing you could do. If someone's going to hold on to their position, they'll do that. But that's why we have the courts, because you have to have another place to look at what the situation is and make a decision based on the strength of the law instead of the two fighting parties or the two fighting attorneys. So
So Pitbull with a heart. Tell me about that.
that was a client that I had that felt that I was very compassionate to her and was worried if I was going to really be able to stand up to the other attorneys. And and I did, and we got her everything that she should have gotten. And she was like, "Wow, you're a pit bull! Like I couldn't believe you did all of that." And that's why she said pit bull with a heart, because I'm very compassionate with my clients, but I can also be a very strong advocate with the other attorney, which is what our job is. The attorney's job is to be an advocate and to be our client's voice when they can't speak for themselves, and that's what we have to do. So that's where that came from. And that was a long time ago, but
It's
it's
stuck.
yeah.
Oh, wow. What do you do when you're not working?
My favorite thing to do, just like most people, is spend time with my family. I have two adult sons, but whenever they come home, it's like a celebrity coming home. So it's just very exciting to see them. And I like spending time with my husband and friends. Really, that's what life is. We're social animals, right? So spending time with friends and family is my favorite things. I like to read, but really taking walks, we like to travel. So that's basically it. I think just what most people like to do, just be a happy, calm life, because my work is not calm. Well,
No.
I enjoy what I do. It is not calm. So it's nice to be able to relax with family and friends and to travel.
Well, given that your work is so, it could be intense, obviously. So when you travel, what type of trips do you prefer?
We do all types of things. My husband likes to plan like a micro vacation for me probably every few months. So the last one we did was Las Vegas. We've gone to Rhode Island, and we have big trips that we've gone to, like to Europe and things like that. I think the last one we went to is Iceland. The next one we're going to is Italy. So it's just it's nice to actually do a little bit of both. The small trips that are more local and the bigger trips are nice too, just to see different way of life, different part of the world. It's just so interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that approach. It's just to take some mini trips, kind of spread it out throughout the year, and maybe one or two bigger ones,
Yeah.
to balance it out. Yeah, for
Yep, that's
sure.
exactly what we do.
What I'm just wondering. I mean, it sounded like from the very young age, so you're very compassionate. You were raised to help others, and then you were excelling at so many things. You were captain of this, captain of that. Maybe that explains the pit bull part of you. Have
Yeah.
you ever felt? Have you ever felt like as a girl, back then you really needed to sort of a push harder to be heard, or you just like, no, I have the same strength and ability in anybody else.
No, I never felt less than because I was a woman or a girl. It wasn't part of how, like, no one ever told me that I was less than, so I guess I just didn't know. And a lot of times I'm in a room with mostly men. It doesn't affect me at all. I don't feel that I'm lucky that I haven't had that pressure of feeling different. I did have one judge early in my career when I was doing a trial saying, "Do you realize that you have to understand all of this stuff and blah, blah, blah?" before the trial started. Then in the middle of the trial, he apologized to me and said that he saw that I was prepared and I did a great job and he shouldn't have said that to me. And that's the closest I came to somebody I felt treating me differently. And I just felt like he was an older person and I was a very young attorney. I didn't think he was saying that it was because I was a woman. I think he was looking at me as inexperienced as compared to the other attorneys who were older and he had the perception that they had more experience and maybe would be able to do a better job than I did. And once he saw that I was prepared and doing a good job for my client and on the case, I thought that it was amazing that he said to me, "I'm sorry that I said that, and I was wrong, and clearly you know what you're doing." So that felt really good. So I just think that being a strong advocate, I had two parents that were immigrants, and I just felt that people have very low little tolerance for accents, and they would always rush through. So I felt that I was always speaking for them, or explaining things or advocating for my parents, or because my mother had all of these old lady friends, I felt like I was always helping them and advocating for them. And then I felt that in school, I was always advocating for the underdog, the kid that people weren't being nice to. It was like, why do you have to do that? What'd she do to you? I don't know. It was just in me. And it just translated to the next thing that I just felt that sometimes when people are intimidated or fearful or feel like they're a deer in the headlights because they're shocked by what's happening, they can't find the way to articulate what they want to say. And I've always been a very good issue spotter, and I feel that I could be that voice for them and put into words what they can't express for themselves. So it's something that I've always enjoyed doing.
Oh, I love what you just said. I love what you just said because I've noticed, even in immediate family, friends, clients, whatever, I did notice that. And even, myself, it's like a fight or flight. We don't have the same ability as animals do when you're faced with some sort of a trauma. It could be mini trauma to just shake it off and keep running. You store it inside and you never know what sort of triggers that. And I call it the flooding, right? We get flooded with emotional stuff. We can't really articulate so clearly what we need or what we want to say. I love what you said, that you sort of become the voice.
Yeah,
That's really well said. Wow.
that's our job as
Yeah.
attorneys. I mean, even when I've worked with you, when you're talking about like how to this asset, a pension, well, that's somebody's whole life, right? That's the rest of their life after the divorce. It's important. And the person doesn't know, how do I get that? They
Mhm.
don't know, what do I do? So when you're giving them that information, when you're saying, here's what I'm going to do to make it better, and you have that knowledge, I always think about that movie Field of Dreams, where
Yes.
the doctor who's a baseball player, he walks off the field and he becomes a doctor. That's kind of how I feel, and you probably feel the same way too. You're in your personal life, you're one way, but you walk across that threshold and you become the pension expert, or I become
Yeah.
the attorney. And we put that hat on and we could help people in a way that somebody else can't because they don't have our experience to do it. And it's just that's what we do, and we're lucky to be able to play that role for other people in their lives and during the most difficult time in their lives.
Yeah, you've said it. I mean, that again, another thing that just lands really well with what you said. I was trying to figure out why this work in particular, and this work, I don't mean executing, what a certain part of the division of the retirement assets, not that, but why the teaching and the constant learning, why it resonates, why that part. And I remember when I was probably, I don't know, 10, 12, I remember pretending like I was teaching and it
Mm.
just filled me up. Like I
Yeah,
was explaining something like simply. And that's, you're right. That's what that is they don't know. They've never been through it most of the time. So we have sort of that, it's almost a responsibility, you know, I need to learn and then convey that to them in a way they understand, not in a way that makes me look a certain type of a way, in a way they understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a privilege because other types of professions, maybe you're selling a product, you're selling a thing, you're selling a computer, or you're selling a microphone. But with us, we're just selling our knowledge, really.
Yes.
We're giving people, like, we learn as much as we can so we could help others in their what they're going through with what we've learned. And it's just such a privilege that we get to do that and that we get to help people. And it's interesting. I see people from all different walks of life. They could be a professional that's on TV every single day, but when it comes to their children and their own life, it's hard for them to articulate what they have to say. Like they can't wrap their head around that this is happening to them. This wasn't supposed to be their life. And a lot of times what I say to my clients is they're not mourning the marriage that they have. They're mourning the marriage that they thought they were going to have, what their life was supposed to be. That's
Wow.
what they're mourning because the life they're having right now, the reason they're getting divorced is because it's not good. They're walking on eggshells. They're not happy. It's not their peaceful place. It's their angst. It's the problems that they have, but that's not what they got married for. They got married expecting to have this happy, wonderful life. So that's what they're mourning. And whenever I say that to people, they're like, you know what? That's right. That's how I feel. And then they don't feel that, why do I feel sad? I don't, I want this to end. I don't want to live like this. Why do I feel sad? That answers the question for them.
Hmm.
And they get over to their other side. And the number one thing my clients say to me when they're done is that they have peace. That's all they want is peace, you know, after it's all over. And everybody deserves to be happy and to
Is
have peace.
that is that what you conveyed in your book?
My book is really about litigation. It's not about psychology or anything. It's really about what to expect if you're going to go to court because the cases that I deal with, the divorces I deal with are litigated divorces, the ones where people don't agree. So I'm not a mediator. I don't do mediation. I know mediators that I could refer people to. But when people don't agree, it doesn't matter if you're being 100% reasonable. If the other person doesn't agree with you, you're going to court.
Hmm.
And that's very overwhelming for people. So I had a number of clients that I would talk to and I would give whatever my little pieces of advice. And they would say, you should really put this in a book. You should write it all down. And that's how the book came about. So the book starts off, the first chapter is called Fear, Shame, Guilt, Sadness, or Just Pissed Off. And it's about the emotions that people feel when they realize they're actually getting divorced because
Hmm.
a lot of times people don't realize that. So like I mentioned earlier, deer in the headlights, you're like, wait, this is happening to me? Like this wasn't supposed to, this happens to other people. And what I say in that chapter, for example, is that you have to identify why you feel that way. You have to then acknowledge it and then put it aside so you can plan because the
Hmm.
what goes into your stipulation of settlement, which is what we call our divorce agreement in New York, what you put into that agreement is going to affect you for many, many years, until your children, if they're young, until they're 21 years old, if they go to college. That's a long time. So you have to be able to concentrate. You can't be can't see through your tears or blind with rage or whatever it is. You have to be able to think and plan. So give yourself a minute to
Wow.
be upset and then put it over there so that you can plan. And that's kind of what the book is. I have a chapter on dealing with a spouse that have substance abuse issues, mental health issues,
Wow.
tell your children about the divorce. I have a chapter called Dollars and Cents, which is SENSE, not CENTS. And that's because sometimes people will be fighting and they're spending more money on the fight than the thing that they're fighting over because every attorney charges by the hour. So it becomes very expensive. So I talk about when do you decide you have to make an economic decision? When is it okay to let it go so that you have peace of mind and so that you can move on? So I talk about all of those different things. I give resources. So it's not written specific to New York. It's written for a national audience. So it has all hotlines for abuse, for example, for domestic violence, for all the bar associations in the country if you want to get legal help that way, and all copyrighted forms that I made that help people to plan. So it's kind of like a resource.
That is
And
a terrific resource.
yeah, and I tell it through stories from my clients, so it reads like a novel. So I change their names, but every chapter has stories from my clients where they're the ones kind of saying, here's what's going to happen and get ready, and here's how I dealt with it. So people enjoy reading it because it's like you have this whole group of other people that are telling you, I went through this too, and you can get through it. So it's a
Wow.
nice book.
Very, very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Because there's so much out there in a way of books, and this one, it's very specific, and it sounds like, you're able to meet people where they're at and just really grab that emotion, and then just give them the tool, go, okay, normalize it, and just, this is normal, this is what you'll be feeling. So, and
And
I
just to
also
know what
like
to,
the
sorry, just to
digest.
know what to expect, I was going to say, like
Yes.
that takes all the mystery out. And really
Yes.
what people are afraid of is the fear of the unknown. What's the judge going to say? What are they going to expect of me? Should I talk? Should I not talk? How do I prepare? How do I interview an attorney? I talk about how to pick an attorney. I
Mm,
talk about how to prepare for court, what to do while you're in court. And these are all things that if people know that, it just takes not all the anxiety. You're gonna obviously feel a little nervous the first time you go into court, but it takes the mystery out of it.
mm,
So it's a
yes.
whole thing.
No, and I like what you said before, and it could be applicable to this book, is you take them, it's one step at a time, where you equate it to, like, when you walk into a messy room, it will be overwhelming. And here it's like one chapter at a time. If this one applies to you, that may apply to you, but you just tackle one at a time. And yeah, look, it's a process. When you remove the emotions at the end of the day, that's really what that is, and you have to get through it. The question is, how economically, how efficiently, and making sure that you don't lose sense of yourself. And with somebody like you, um, you have a great sort of you have a way to shepherd them through this process.
Thank you.
So, and don't you have do you also have a little dog?
Yes, I have a little Jack Russell Terrier who's very
Oh.
cute. He's 12 years old now, so it's getting a little old, but
Oh.
very sweet still. That's the thing
What?
about little dogs. They're always like the baby.
Yeah, yes.
Always carry them around.
Yeah, we have one. He's 3 now, but I didn't grow up around dogs, and
Oh,
I'm a first generation immigrant myself. And even before I left my country of origin, mom never really had a dog, because we lived in a high rise, and it just was not conducive. She was a single parent. So when I just the whole experience, being around it and touching it, and it's just like life changing. It's incredible.
oh, so you're enjoying it. What kind of dog do you have?
He's a little Havanese.
Oh, okay. So you got a little dog too.
Yeah, yeah, little, oh my gosh,
Little ball of fur.
a fur ball. He looks almost like a toy. It's so
Yeah.
perfect.
I
And I
know.
feel they don't talk, they do not resist. They're so completely and utterly dependent
I
on
know.
us as humans, right?
Yeah,
It's
just unconditional love. They're just
yeah,
always happy to see you. They always want to give you affection. Yeah, dogs are amazing. Dogs are
I
amazing.
know.
Yeah.
I know. Oh my gosh. Well, listen, on a parting note here, any advice, any thoughts you would also give to attorneys who are coming into this field or thinking about coming into the family law?
I think for attorneys, the best advice is that you have to be very good at compartmentalizing. Your clients are going through something terrible, and if you take it home with you, it'll become very difficult for you. You have to be able to be empathetic and compassionate with the client while you're helping them, but you have to be able to turn it off when you go home so that you can live your life because it'll be overwhelming. And I think that that's the hardest thing for divorce attorneys. If they're not able to do that, if they're not able to turn it off, they'll be thinking about their poor client and what they're going through, and they won't be able to get past it. So I think that's the best advice I can give. Like, find a way that for you, you could do it. I'm a good compartmentalizer. No matter how much I love my clients, I could turn it off. And if I have to go on a call, I could turn it on again, and then I could turn it right off again because that's to me, that's survival. Otherwise it'd be too difficult. So that's my best piece of advice to divorce attorneys. It's a tough area of law, and you have to be able to compartmentalize.
You do, in theory, yes, definitely. That's something that's super helpful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate, I mean, it's been a joy getting to know the woman behind the pit bull with a heart. Now I see why that is. And also thank you for your honesty and advice. It's, and how it was really insightful to see how you work with people in their hardest, times in their lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Denise. I enjoyed it.
And to our listeners and viewers, to find out more about Sandra and how to get a hold of her, make sure that you click on the link below and follow us on all social media channels. Tune into the Beyond the Bar podcast for great conversations. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.